Honored to be joined in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, by the football guru, Solomon Wilcots. His football IQ can't be measured. It's that high. He's got his doctorate in the game of football. We talked about a lot of things, talked about what life was like for him as an 8th-round pick in his first training camp. Talked about everything from training camp on and getting ready for a season. Talked about defending an AFC Championship. As a player, he had to try to get that done. I experienced the same things. All those kind of things we talked about. And it's a 2-part series with Solomon Wilcots. And those are the type of things we talked about in part 1. I think you're going to be excited about a lot of things he has to say about the Cincinnati Bengals. Welcome once again, and thank you for joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, emanating from our outstanding studios as always. And we have our good friend and football guru, Solomon Wilcots, as our special guest today. And Solly, I really appreciate your time. Nothing more I like than talking football with Solomon Wilcots.
Hey, I always enjoy talking ball with you. You know, when I hear guru now, I start to think, okay, that means old. It means been around for a while. I should have a long gray beard, right? And kind of, sit with my legs crossed and kind of give you some information. I try to stay in the gym, so I'm trying to beat back Father Time a little bit here, Dave.
And you're doing a hell of a job, Solly. You look like you could still play, man. You look like you could go out there and lay some licks on people.
Looks can be deceiving, my friend. I can look like, I don't know that I feel like that every single day. Some days, but not every day. That's for sure.
I hear you. That's why I tell people. Sometimes the paint job's okay, but the you start looking at the engine and the insides.
That's
right.
right.
A little bit of a problem. So let's talk. In your career, Solly, you play at Colorado. You have an outstanding career there. You're drafted 8th round into the National Football League by the Bengals, and you go to training camp and you show that you belong in the National Football League. What advice do you have for the young rookies about to embark on their first training camp? No matter if they were high draft picks, late picks, college free agents, whatever the case may be, everybody's in the same boat. What's your advice?
Yeah, I'll share with our listeners a little bit of what a guy by the name of Ronnie Lott shared with me. Mm-hmm. I was in college, and every summer I would work Sid Gilman's camp down in San Diego. I had attended the camp when I was in high school, and when I was attending those camps, a lot of aspirational coaches who that you may not have heard of them at the time, but they would later go on to build great careers. Guys like Brian Billick coached at those camps back then. Guys like Sean Payton, who was just a lowly college coach at San Diego State back then. John Fox. And so there were several guys. They were going to be great coaches in the NFL. They were just lowly coaches. But I remember when I was in college, I would work as a counselor at those camps. And I remember Ronnie Lott, Marcus Allen. They came and, we were just in college, and they would take us to lunch, me and a good friend of mine who had played high school ball with. And they would just begin to talk to us about, look, you get drafted, you go to training camp as a rookie, here's what you need to do. And it was like I'm taking notes, right? Yep. In the mind, I'm taking mental notes. And I remember Ronnie saying, look, veteran players are going to try to get you to not be physical with them. And we call it being that brother-in-law kind of thing where you take it easy on them, they take it easy on you, but no work is really getting done. He said, don't get lulled into that kind of transactional deal. What coaches need to see from you is they need to see physicality, they need to see your talent, they need to see how physical you are, how smart you are, and how skilled you are. And don't you take it easy on any veteran who call themselves trying to be your friend just so they can look good, but what do you think that means for you? And Ronnie taught us that you're going to get an early bus ticket home. So he taught us that every single drill, every single practice, every single play was meaningful. And he said, you better bring it on every single one of them. He said, first impressions make a lasting impression. He said, if you hit anything that moves, especially if you play on defense, you hit anything that moves, That's what gets the coach's attention.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget it. And of course, it would take a guy like Ronnie Lott to say that. But we all knew who he was. And I'm saying, if that guy's giving you any advice, you might want to take it.
No question. No question. You know, it's funny. My rookie year, Bill Tiger Johnson was my line coach, you know, and he was like, I just expect all out effort from you guys every day, talking to the entire offensive line, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm a rookie, and I'm thinking, man, I better at least do that or more, you know. So I'm going against Mike Reed, who, you know, is a very talented guy, concert pianist, written music for Ronnie Millsap, you know, hit songs and all. He was a great player, though. I mean, he was an all-pro guy. He only played in the league 4 years, but he was first-round pick out of Penn State, defensive player of the year, you know.
He was Aaron Donald before Aaron Donald.
Quick as a cat. He
right?
was. You're right. I mean, he was quick as a cat.
Yeah.
And he hated me because my rookie year, you know, I was going, it was my game. You know, every practice was like game day for me. And he's like, dude, listen, you know, and I'm like, Mike,
slow down.
Yeah, he's like, take it easy, big boy. Take it. I'm like, Mike, you're a perennial Pro Bowl guy. You're going to the Hall. I'm just trying to make the team, bro. You know, it's like, I got to go. He goes, all right, fair enough. Hated me though, man.
I know, right?
Hated me, but you're right.
I had some enemies too. I had some guys who weren't big fans. I will say this: those guys, by the time you get deep into training camp, you remember those days, Dave. We practiced twice a day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like this one practice you had to show up each day.
Right.
You had to show up for both practices every single day, and they were physical. And you know, I remember James Brooks, man. Oh God, and you know how JB was. He didn't like anybody.
Right.
And so I didn't take it personal.
Right.
But as we got closer to the end of the training camp, deeper into the preseason, what you saw is the respect that you got from the veteran players.
Yeah.
And JB, if he came and talked to you with any kind of decency and respect, then that means you were winning him over. But he didn't give you that until you kind of got close to D-Day when you found out who really made the team. And if he was talking to you in a pleasant way, that was a sign that you pretty much made it. And you and I both know that was a pretty high bar to clear.
No doubt. No question about it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So you were in training camps with the Bengals, with the Vikings and the Steelers.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast, how similar, how different were camps for you, Sully, in those three organizations?
Yeah, I thought Bengals camp was pretty physical. I thought it was it was hot up in Wilmington, man.
Yep.
I mean, it was hot. I come from out west, so I wasn't used to the humidity, but I was used to the grind because I had played for Coach Bill McCartney, who had been the defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan, and came out of that Bo Schembechler program. Anyone knows Bo. Bo went to Miami of Ohio and played for Woody Hayes there.
Yep.
And so you got to understand, Bo is connected to Woody, and Woody is like, that's Paul Brown stuff. And even Dick LeBeau had played for Woody Hayes at Ohio State.
Sure.
So a lot of people didn't know how close Bo Schembechler was to Woody Hayes at Ohio State, considering he was a Michigan guy. But I had gone through a program in college that was very demanding. I mean, spring ball was a battle royale. You hit every day. So I was used to that when I got here. And so camp was hard, but I survived it. In fact, I more than survived it. I felt I thrived in that environment.
Yep.
But when I got to Pittsburgh, man, I can tell you right now, we were doing Oklahoma drill. You remember Marvin Lewis brought it from Pittsburgh here. And that's outlawed today. You remember the commissioner called Marvin, was like, what are you doing? And for people who don't know what the Oklahoma drill is, you got one guy, just me, the defender. I got a blocker in front of me, sometimes two, and I got to shed those guys and get to the ball carrier and tackle him impressively.
Yep.
Like I don't get to come off the block and then get ran over. You know what I'm saying? and here's how I knew Pittsburgh. I say, see, this is why these guys are tough. Because I remember Dick LeBeau, when I'm playing in Cincinnati, he would always tell us, he said, don't look at these guys' record now. Because we beat Pittsburgh with regularity during the 4 years I was with the Bengals.
Yeah.
I mean, we beat them every year, every time.
Yeah,
we swept them every year. So but Dick used to tell us now going into those games, I don't care what these guys' records are. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. You're going to have to get in the whirlpool when this is over. He was right. Every time you played them, regardless of the score, they were a tough physical team. Well, when I got there to practice, it was Bill Cowher's first year. I was like, I see why. I get it. And then guess what? Not only did as a defensive back, I mean, every guy had to do Oklahoma drill. I don't care, from Rod Woodson to Greg Lloyd to even the wide receivers had to man. They had to man up. I had never been with a team, excuse me, where the wide receivers had to man up in that physical kind of way. And now you know why Hines Ward were knocking guys all across this league. Yeah, dude, Oklahoma drill, just like the DBs, just like the linemen, just like the linebackers. So I appreciated the culture. And because of how I came up in football, I adapted to that with ease. And it felt like home for me.
It's funny you say that. Forrest Gregg, when he came to Cincinnati, brought the Oklahoma drill, the Nutcracker drill, he called it with them. And they did it in Green Bay with Vince Lombardi. So, man, he was going to do it.
There you go.
And
there you go.
Not only lineman against linemen, and but they would have fullbacks against linebackers, and tight ends and all that. Yeah. And then the defensive backs against receivers. Yeah, I mean, everybody got their lick, other than quarterback. Right. The quarterbacks did not go.
Quarterback's the only one. No, they don't have to do that. But everybody else, to a man.
No doubt.
Like Forrest Gregg, you know this, helped turn the team around to their first Super Bowl.
Sure.
Like, there are certain coaches that are going to test your manhood.
No doubt.
Like, there no way you're going to be on their football team and your manhood not be tested. Forrest Gregg was one of them. Bill Cowher was one of those guys, and we all know he came from Chuck Noll.
Yep.
Chuck Noll played for, guess who? Paul Brown.
Right.
So all this stuff kind of comes back home, and that's why I think the Bengals, I think have always, I know in the 90s that kind of got away, but I think the Bengals were always one of the toughest teams that could match the Pittsburgh Steelers, that could match some of the Houston Oilers when they were a tough team, that could match the physicality of the Baltimore Ravens. And I think this team is now back to being that way. Yeah,
that division that you're talking about in that time frame, Houston and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Cleveland, that was the black and blue. I mean, that was where you got bruised up, man. You got beaten up in that division. Right. There's no question about it. That's how important this month plus that players have now, Solly, and back in the day, it was different. I mean, shoot, in the 70s, mid 70s to early 80s, when I was playing in the NFL, you'd go to training camp for 9 weeks. So guys would literally play themselves into shape at training camp. But now, they've had the OTAs and all that, and then they get a month, 5 weeks, and then training camp starts. How important is this month for guys to stay with it and not slack off? And I mean, it's vitally important to how the season starts, I think, don't you?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think, first of all, you got to be careful in how you live your life.
Yep.
And what you do. I mean, we've already had players who've passed away as a result of, after leaving the team. I know many coaches around the NFL and general managers, they're concerned about players going back to their homes or back to an environment maybe that's not best for them or conducive for them, or maybe where they have people who are hanger-ons or whatever. So I think you have to be very careful with that first. Secondly, the game is played so much different today, Dave, that that means your training is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Where you and I would have been heavy on the weights. We would have did some outdoor drills and make sure that we were out in the sun. We were getting that work done in the heat of the day.
Yep.
A lot of these teams practice at night. They go early or they go late, and they go once a day. So there maybe the heat isn't as much of a factor as you're heading into training camp. They're really looked out for in a way that we weren't. And so now what do they need to work on? What is the focus of the training? Tremendous cardiovascular system. Make sure you're ready to do a lot of running. The reason why, because you don't want to pull a hamstring, pull or tear, and have those joints really stressed out, the muscles and tendons stressed out. You got to come to training camp ready to run. You got to be ready to go so that you can get the work in. So you got to be out on the field. You got to be getting the drills in. I think that's really critical. I think if you're on defense and you're a skilled player, I think ball drills are going to be vitally important. You remember when Jamar Chase last year had the early drops.
Yeah.
Remember, he had took off a year, his final year at LSU. I knew he'd get over it, but maybe had he spent maybe a little bit more just catching the ball, just every single day. And he doesn't have to overcome that crisis of confidence that can beset even a veteran player if you have the early drops. Now, he got over it by week 1 of the regular season. It was behind him, and we were really glad to see that. But say if you're a wide receiver, nobody wants to have to endure that and then try to get themselves ready to play. So that's just really an example of what you need to be doing during these next 5 weeks before the start of training camp.
And now the big phrase, of course, is run it back. The Bengals have a season like they had, unexpected, and just about everybody's eyes and minds. They go to the Super Bowl, don't quite finish it off, but defending AFC champion.
Yeah.
Well, no playoff team in Bengals history has won a playoff game the following year, has backed it up with a playoff win the following year. So this team could set a record in so doing there. And we both played in Super Bowls that the team, I played in Super Bowl 16. The following year was a work stoppage, a strike year, only played 9 games. We went 7-2, second best record in football. But the New York Jets, Freeman McNeil has 202 yards on 21 carries. I'll never forget it. Runs for a touchdown, throws a 14-yard touchdown pass. We get spanked. We don't just get beaten. We get spanked. I mean, we have a 7-0 lead, 14-3 lead. And we lose like 44-17, I think it was. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And then your team gets into Super Bowl, wins the AFC Championship, gets into Super Bowl 23, and the following year goes 8-8, loses 4 games by a touchdown or less. A good football team, but man, it's hard. How do you avoid, the I don't know, pitfalls might be too strong a word, but how do you maintain that level of success and run it back like they're saying?
Yeah, I remember that final game of the year. We played in Minnesota. It was on Christmas night on a Monday night game. We spent Christmas Eve on the road in Minnesota in a hotel together, separated from our families, and all day Christmas waiting to play the night game. They don't even play that game anymore because it's so horrible for players. And so that's why by the time you get to the final week of the season, there is no Monday night game.
Yep.
But that's what they did to us. Listen, it's no excuse. We gave up a late touchdown in that game. And then there went our playoff hopes. But we were in it right up until the last game, the very last moment.
Yep.
We missed it with an 8-8 record. But to answer your question, I think it takes an understanding that you're going to get everybody's best shot.
No doubt.
Everyone's coming at you. You may as well won the Super Bowl. People looking at you. Do you think the Steelers, the Ravens, the Browns, it's all get back time. They want to pay the Bengals back. Bengals went from worst to first in the division. Those 3 teams are mad at them. You got the Kansas City Chiefs who are just frothing at the mouth because the Bengals beat them twice in 1 month.
Yep.
Right? And embarrassed the Grim Reaper. That is Patrick Mahomes. Yep. He's angry. They've got Ryan Tannehill. I'm sure he's on their list. He had to go get counseling after that loss. Right? You got these players are proud NFL players and proud NFL teams. Mike Vrabel is still right now totally ticked off that he got 9 sacks on Joe Burrow and couldn't win the game.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, I talked to him. He's hot. And so if that's what you're facing, you got to understand it's going to be much more difficult to gain the same ground. It's like in a battle. If you gain ground and then you give it up and you got to try to regain that same ground a second time, you're going to have to fight twice as hard. And that's what the Bengals are facing. I think they know that. I've talked to Mike Hilton. He knows that. He knows the uphill battle. I think many of them, even Joe Burrow, knows that. But I think they are also up to the challenge. I'll give you this, and you probably already know this. The Bengals are the first team in NFL history to have 4 players, 25 years or younger, and they're part of a 4,000-yard passing attack, or the quarterback threw for 4,000 yards. The runner had over 1,000 yards rushing, and 2 wide receivers who are 25 years or younger with over 1,000 yards receiving. That's Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, and Joe Burrow. So it's a young team. The nucleus is a young group. And so that's the part that concerns you the most, because every last one of those guys, we know what kind of players they are, but are you really ready for that mental grind, that uphill battle to regain the same territory with a much more difficult fight?
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right. You know,
gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.